Welcome back to my channel. They thought the beast was just another weapon in their arsenal, something they could sharpen, swing, and then store away once the battle was over, but last night on Raw proved just how catastrophically wrong that assumption truly was because Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed didn't simply miscalculate. They committed career suicide by provoking a monster none of them ever truly understood. They woke something ancient, something primal, something that never belonged to Heyman's so-called vision in the first place, and in one violent moment of pure fury, the empire Paul Heyman had spent months constructing was reduced to rubble, dust, and a regret so heavy you could see it weighing down their faces as everything collapsed. What happened wasn't a storyline, wasn't a segment, wasn't a typical backstage betrayal or faction implosion you see every few years in WWE. It was an execution carried out by a creature who doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, and doesn't tolerate being used like some pawn in another man's chess game. And that is exactly why you need to subscribe right now, because when Brock Lesnar declares war, when the beast decides he's done being manipulated, when he snaps from calm to cataclysm, empires don't just fall, they are erased, scorched from existence, and you deserve a front row seat to witness every ounce of carnage that is guaranteed to follow. Welcome back, because the entire saga of Heyman's grand vision has always been one of meticulous strategy, slow domination, cold calculations masquerading as leadership, and the belief that Paul Heyman could once again control chaos the way he did with Roman Reigns or CM Punk or other legends he claims to have molded. But this time the stakes were different because Breaker was the unstoppable engine, Reed the immovable wall, and Heyman the mastermind pulling invisible strings. Yet for all their planning, all their structure, all their arrogance, they forgot the single most catastrophic detail of all. You cannot control a force of nature. You do not contain a lightning bolt, and on Monday Night Raw, that lightning bolt struck directly into the heart of the machine they spent so long building. In their climb toward dominance, they convinced themselves that Brock Lesnar was merely a temporary ally, a weapon borrowed from war games, a nuclear warhead they could point at enemies and then hide away in a steel cage once the mission was complete. But that is not how Brock Lesnar works. You don't enlist Brock Lesnar. You unleash him. And once unleashed, he belongs to no one, answers to no one, and bends to no faction, no vision, no master except his own hunger for destruction. The fatal flaw was believing the beast wouldn't turn around and notice the strings Heyman was trying to loop around his neck. The fatal moment was the instant Brock realized that he wasn't being respected, he was being played. When his music hit, the crowd erupted like a building struck by thunder, but Lesnar didn't stride down the ramp with his usual cold amusement. No smirk, no swagger, just a storm brewing in human form. He didn't march, he charged, every step radiating fury, so thick it felt like the arena air tightened. Heyman immediately went into panic mode, hands raised, voice shaking with that salesman tone he uses when he's trying to survive another day, pleading, explaining, lying through his teeth. Brock, my client, we won, we are the vision, but Lesnar didn't even acknowledge him. He didn't blink. He didn't spare him a glance. Instead, he raised one thick finger, straight as a spear, pointing at Breaker and Reed in a gesture that carried more threat than any speech ever could. And when he finally spoke, his voice wasn't loud. It was low, guttural, the type of growl that doesn't just vibrate through the microphone, it vibrates through your bones. You used me. That's all he said. That's all he needed to say. Breaker, who has never backed down from a challenge in his life, puffed out his chest in defiance, thinking he was stepping up to a man. Reed moved with him, a coordinated motion, the kind of two-on-one ambush they must have rehearsed backstage, believing numbers would save them from the storm. But a hurricane doesn't care about numbers. A tidal wave doesn't care about coordination. You don't ambush a natural disaster and expect to walk away. Reed charged first with his full mass behind him, but Lesnar sidestepped effortlessly and sent him crashing backward into the canvas with a German suplex so violent the entire ring quaked, and before Reed's brain could even understand what hit him, Breaker launched himself through the air, attempting to use his speed to counter Brock's power. But the beast snatched him out of midair like a wild animal grabbing prey, hoisting him into position for an F5. Breaker slipped out, landing on his feet, and for a fleeting heartbeat, It looked like maybe, just maybe, they had a fight on their hands. And then Lesnar smiled. Not a pleasant smile. Not a playful smile. A predator smile, the kind a wolf gives right before it bites. He ducked a clothesline, wrapped Breaker up like he weighed nothing, lifted him again for the F5, and then did something worse, something humiliating, something symbolic. He didn't hit the move. Instead, he turned, walked 3 steps, and launched Breaker like a human missile over the top rope directly onto Heyman at ringside. The wise man was crushed under Breaker's 250-pound frame, collapsing into a heap of pain and disillusionment as the reality of his crumbling empire finally hit him. Inside the ring, Reed struggled to stand, dazed, desperate, and before he could even lift his arms to defend himself, Lesnar struck again. One more German suplex. Then another. Then another. Then another. Reed's body bounced lifelessly with each throw, and when Lesnar finally stood over him, chest heaving, sweat dripping, he looked down at the broken mountain of a man beneath him, then at the wreckage of Heyman and Breaker on the outside, and he unleashed a roar so loud the broadcast microphones nearly cracked. The beast was awake. The beast was loose. And now the entire locker room, from the top of the card to the bottom, has to ask themselves one terrifying question. Who is he coming for next? That is why you should smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon immediately, because we're going to track every step Brock Lesnar takes from here, analyze every snarl, every confrontation, every hint of what his next move might be, and break down the ripple effects this assault will have not just on the remains of Heyman's shattered vision, but on CM Punk, on the identity of the mysterious attacker, on the entire balance of power in WWE. Nothing is stable anymore. Nothing is predictable. The landscape has shifted into uncharted territory, and you are here at the very beginning. So comment below and tell me who should be more afraid right now. Heyman himself, who has angered the only man he could never manipulate, or the shadowy figure who hired the mystery attacker and might now find themselves on the beast's radar. Because after what happened on Raw, fear is the only logical response, and the fallout starts right here. Because after what happened on Raw, fear is the only logical response, and the fallout starts right here, expanding into something far more volatile than anyone inside or outside the ring ever anticipated. Because when a force like Brock Lesnar breaks away from a faction, it is not simply a storyline shift. It is a seismic tremor that reshapes every rivalry.